When you think of scary games, your mind is instantly flooded with the thoughts of games like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, or maybe Outlast. But just one generation later came a series that can easily rank amongst the greats: Dead Space. These titles came out and instantly inspired a new wave of horror games. One part Resident Evil, one part System Shock. The subject of today's video is the very game that kicked off the franchise. While there is no doubt in my mind that Dead Space was designed to be scary, what exactly did the developers do to make it scary? I wanted to know if it succeeded in what it set out to do, or was it dead on arrival?
Welcome gamers to Is It Scary, where I play scary games so you don't have to. And we talk about how it was made. I'm Rob, and I've been a horror fan almost all my life. And I'm currently on a journey to play as many horror games as I can. New and old, indie and AAA. So is Dead Space as scary as people make it out to be? Let's find out and get into the game.
Strange. Such a little thing.
As the game opens, we are introduced to our protagonist, Isaac Clarke, the engineer aboard the USG Killian. Isaac is joined aboard the USG Killian by his fellow crewmates, Security Chief Zach Hammond and Computer Specialist Kendra Daniels, and two red shirts the game doesn't even bother naming. We join them as they investigate a distress signal coming from the USG Ishimura, the game's primary location.
Never heard of a total communications blackout on one of these things. You'd think with 1,000 people on board, someone would pick up the phone.
The Ishimura seems to be having some communication errors, and as the Killian begins to dock, a malfunction causes the ship to crash into the Ishimura's docking bay. After successfully landing, we enter the ship in search of the Planet Cracker's crew, only to quickly discover that the ship was seemingly abandoned.
There should be a security detail in here.
Yeah? Well, there's not. There's nobody here.
It's not long after this that we discover exactly what happened to the ship's crew. You are confronted and attacked by terrifying, twisted visages. The red shirts are hastily killed off, and Isaac is separated from the others as we desperately try to run and avoid being another victim of the horde. These monstrous enemies are known as Necromorphs. When designing the Necromorphs, developers wanted them to not just be scary, but relatable. This holds true with the more common enemy, the Slasher. While exploring the Ishimura, the Slashers you encounter can clearly be seen still wearing work clothes, and in various states of dress, as if the crew was caught unaware while performing their daily tasks. Then suddenly, they were horrifically bent and broken into these terrifying enemies we see before us.
The idea, the moment when everything sort of clicked for us, was when we made them relatable.
And I think it's the human part that makes you kind of like feel a little bad about shooting, right? You know that used to be a human.
If you look really closely at some of the slashers, right, you can still even make human eye contact with a few of them, or you can recognize what their old uniform was when they were actually just a normal member of the crew. Or the more grotesque ones, you could even see sort of how the human body was repurposed and bent and broken to make something.
After the attack, Isaac is tasked with repairing the USG Killian. But another malfunction caused by a swarm of Necromorphs causes the Killian to burst into flames, nearly killing our protag. With the Killian gone, our three survivors are trapped within the Ishimura, absolutely teeming with Necromorphs and no way of escaping or contacting any potential rescue party.
What the hell is happening down there? What happened to the shuttle?
That was our ride home. It's the only way off the ship.
Kendra.
No, Hammond! This changes everything! This is Senior Medical Officer Nicole Brennan transmitting ship-wide. We need more help. We don't have the resources.
We learn later that the player character Isaac volunteered for this job as his girlfriend Nicole is stationed aboard the Ishimura. And besides the unfinished video we watched at the start of the game, we haven't heard from her in some time, prompting Isaac to worry. Progressing through the game, we meet up with Nicole. Isaac is relieved to see her alive and well.
Door's unlocked, Isaac. I can't get over to you, but I'll find a way. I love you. This will all be over soon.
Now, I don't have a really great segue for this, but I did want to talk about this at some point. The most interesting mechanic of the Dead Space series is the way you're expected to deal with enemies. While most games require a simple headshot, or just for the player to empty a clip into the creature's body, developers were a little more particular on how they wanted you to handle the Necromorphs in Dead Space.
Games, and the tradition has just been like, just light that guy up, hit him anywhere. Maybe a headshot is important, or maybe they even do like location-specific damage. But we're taking that a lot further and really building the game around that, in that you have to have intent in where you're shooting, right? You have to be strategic about it.
Strategic dismemberment is our main mechanic in Dead Space. It's what you use to kill the enemies, basically. Instead of just headshots or body shots, you got to dismember these guys.
We wanted something that wasn't just fire blindly and sort of light things up, and you've got a bunch of guns and you just sort of overwhelm dudes. We wanted the player to feel sort of just powerful enough and to use a lot of improvisation.
Wouldn't it be cool if you cut off their legs and they kept crawling at you? If they cut off your head and they still came at you a different way. So we went deeper and deeper into that, and it just felt like something really new and really cool.
Throughout the game, you'll find and pick up a variety of audio and video logs that lay out the full story of the Ishimura and its doomed crew. Turns out the captain of the ship was a devout Unitologist.
Worried. Captain, people are dying down there, killing each other. Is this madness, the transformation Unitology teaches us?
Doctor, Terrence, there will always be risk when the stakes are high. And here, they're enormous. It could change everything.
And that's what worries me.
Unitologists adamantly believe that the human race was created by the intelligent design of a divine alien agency.
Many have gone before us, and now it's time for us to take the voyage together. Transcend death. The future take its course. Join me as I gaze upon the face of God.
And will be reunified after death in heaven through the power of the sacred artifact known as the Marker. What's a marker? Markers are double helix-shaped obelisks of extraterrestrial origin. I mean, at least that's what the wiki says. You don't actually learn a lot about Unitology until the second game. It just so happens that the captain of the Ishimura discovered the location of the red marker. With the help of other Unitologists aboard the ship, they lead the Ishimura to Aegis 7 in search of the red marker, despite there being a quarantine around the planet.
The ship is under attack, but request to issue a distress call has been repeatedly denied by Captain Matthias. He won't say it, but everyone on the bridge knows why. This is an illegal operation in a prohibited system. We've all known for months, and we kept our mouths shut.
Almost immediately after arriving, the crew both on and off-world start to feel the effects of the marker, creating this whirlwind of hallucinations and attacks by those under the marker's influence. While all of this is happening, the Ishimura starts to grow a mysterious fleshy-like fungus, which in itself leads to the Necromorph contagion taking hold aboard the ship. Soon, both the colonies on Aegis 7 and the Ishimura are overwhelmed by hordes of monsters.
You know, at the beginning of the movie, it's going to be an hour and a half. You know, at the end of an hour and a half, I'm done. But with a game, you don't necessarily know how long it's going to go on. So, you know, we can continue to scare them for a long time.
The story of Dead Space was the brainchild of Glenn Schofield, executive producer on the game. His original vision for the game was, and I quote, a prison game in space, which honestly sounds like a pretty cool idea. An idea he called Rancid Moon. Name needs work. The premise being escape from New York on another planet.
It started a little over 2 years ago. It just felt like it was the right time to go and, you know, talk to the general manager and president of the company about making our own IP.
After a few years of toying with the idea and seeing the success of other survival horror titles like Resident Evil 4 and BioShock, Glenn worked up the courage to ask the heads of EA to fund their original IP, even going as far as making a 15-minute vertical slice.
Look at the stacks of like a cake, right? You take the slice and you get all the little stacks. So you get the cake part, you get the frosting part, you get all the other little parts, and you get an idea what the whole cake's gonna be like. So that's why they call it the vertical slice.
We wanted to create about 10 minutes of gameplay, but we wanted it to be complete gameplay, not just like a smoke and mirrors demo where it's sort of faked and you're not really seeing a true representation of the software.
A playable demo for EA's then president, which single-handedly got the game greenlit. Earth government, after learning of the Ishimura's whereabouts and the Unitologist involvement, dispatched the military vessel USM Valor. Their goal is to deal with the situation discreetly, so as not to reveal any of their long-buried secrets or their own involvement with the marker. Unfortunately for them, the Valor's own fortune seemed to mirror that of the Killian, as they intercept and open a damaged escape pod from the Ishimura. The same escape pod that Hammond jettisoned with a necromorph trapped inside. Of course, after popping the cork on that pod, the Valor quickly becomes infected with the Necromorph virus, and with no one piloting the Valor, it crashes head-on into the Ishimura. Despite the setback, the Valor does present our protagonist Isaac with a glimmer of hope. The Valor possesses a vital part needed to fix a shuttle aboard the Ishimura. Isaac, with Hammond's help, is able to obtain the part needed to repair the shuttle, sadly at the cost of Hammond's life. Shortly after this, one of the final survivors of the Ishimura, Chief Science Officer Dr. Terrence Kind, contacts Isaac with a plan. Dr. Kind himself was a Unitologist. However, he quickly realized the error of his ways after witnessing firsthand the marker's gifts. Dr. Kind informs Isaac that soon after removing the marker from its resting place, a giant colossus of a creature emerged and ravaged the planet's colonists, and that the creature is in fact the Necromorph running the show. Dr. Kind figures out that the only way to stop this hive mind is to return the marker to the planet, as it's the only way to seal the creature and its contagion away. Isaac agrees to help Dr. Kind. However, before they can complete their mission, Kind is murdered and the shuttle flies off with the marker, leaving Isaac behind. Turns out, Kendra was an agent of the Earth government sent to collect the marker and dispose of any survivors. Before she could get away, Nicole reappears to help Isaac reclaim the shuttle and the marker. Though she seems a bit too calm for the situation they find themselves in, Isaac is happy to see Nicole and more than willing to accept her aid. Together, they remotely bring the shuttle back, but before its return, Kendra exits in an escape pod. Nicole and Isaac board the shuttle, the marker still aboard. They make a beeline for Aegis 7. Isaac successfully returns the marker to the former resting place. Unfortunately, this quickly proves to be a mistake. Returning the marker seems to activate it as it spits out a massive surge of energy, disabling the gravity tethers holding the large chunks of Aegis 7 in orbit above the planet. With them gone, the debris begins to rain down on the area. Isaac, not wanting to be made into a meat pancake, attempts to flee the planet only to re-encounter Kendra. It's at this point in the game where Kendra reveals an M. Night Shyamalan level twist. The Sixth Sense not happening. Kendra has Isaac rewatch the video of Nicole from the beginning of the game, but this time until the very end of the video.
In the end, it all comes down to this one little thing.
The video shows Isaac and us as the player that Nicole is in fact dead, and has been since before our arrival. Turns out, the vision of Nicole that we've been seeing has been the hive mind manipulating us into returning the marker to the planet. Kendra attempts to take the marker and flee, but is stopped by the colossus that is the hive mind. Alone now, Isaac faces down the giant monstrosity in the final boss battle of the game, killing it and escaping with barely enough time before the falling debris destroys the entire dig site, the marker, and anything else that remained. And with that, the end of the game. But of course, no horror tale worth its weight in gold can end without a final jump scare. While the remake promises a return to formula that introduces new aspects of the lore to the first title, there is nothing like a classic. And a classic, the OG Dead Space is. The game is gory, filled to the brim with creepy, well-constructed audio cues, and fascinating story beats. With all that covered, let's answer the question. Is it scary? Let's look at the stats and find out. The love and the passion of the developers was on full display in this one. Though I am personally not the biggest fan of gore, thankfully, this title didn't rely on its body horror for scares. Tight corridors and brilliant sound design made every level feel like a haunted house in space. Dead Space was absolutely terrifying, and with a runtime of 12 hours to complete the story, and a total runtime of 27 hours to 100% the game, you'll have plenty of opportunities for this title to scare the life out of you. However, on the Screamometer, this title was a solid 3 out of 5 screams. The game certainly has a lot of terrifying moments. Unfortunately, in my personal opinion, a problem a lot of these AAA games have is keeping the sense of dread up. Dead Space 2008 was no different, and it does kind of devolve into, oh look, another horde battle. The game as a whole was a 7 out of 10. Definitely above average with its unique setting and story, as well as the originality of the game's monster designs. But I think the runtime and repetitiveness of some of the scenarios, as well as the game's sometimes clunky controls, really hold it back.
And that's it. Dead Space was inspired by games like Resident Evil and films like Event Horizon and Solaris. Creator Glenn Schofield set out to make the scariest game he could imagine. And while I personally think he fell a little short of that lofty goal, Dead Space did well enough that a second game was quickly greenlit in 2011. But we'll talk about that one in the next video. Till then, I've been Rob, and you've been wonderful. Bye, gamers!